Hello friends, very good evening. Welcome to the Hindu editorial analysis. The title of today's editorial says Bridging the Gap. Bridging the gap. Gap between who? Gap between men and women. Gap between men and women in terms of what? Their economic opportunities, their health, their survival, their education, and several other parameters like their political participation etc. So who is giving the data? The data is being given by World Economic Forum. And what is the index that they are giving? Gender Gap Index. And how frequently is it released? Every year. So for 2022, Gender Gap Index has been released by World Economic Forum, and in this release, India was ranked 135 out of 146 countries. This is the background of today's editorial. Now let's go line by line. Let's understand everything line by line. Very, very important editorial from the perspective of both prelims as well as mains. India needs to help women get greater access to jobs and resources. Very, very important sentence. What is the reason for women to lag behind men? Because they do not have access to enough resources. What do we mean by resources? Resources are nothing but your access to education, access to health, access to right kind of food, right? Access to right kind of opportunities. Unless you have access to schooling, unless you have access to good food and good health, how can you fight for a job? How can you apply a job? How can you get a job? Unless you get job, how can you become financially independent? How will you get money? Unless you have money in your own hand, how will you survive? If you don't have your own money, you have to perennially depend on male. You have to perennially depend on men. And men will continue to treat women as inferior. And especially in Indian society, especially in rural areas, we see a lot of parents differentiating between male child and female child. They send their male child to convent or a good private school, and they send their female child to a government school, right? So they always try to give more to boy than to girl because of the limited resources, limited income that they have. So they want to maximize that amount of money that they have by giving it to they wanted to utilize that money. They want to utilize that money for the growth of male child, in the hope that once grown up, the same person will take care of them, and this girl goes to another's house after marriage. So that is the reason people have a tendency to take care of boys more than girls, and because of this lack of access to resources, girls are falling behind. They are lagging behind in comparison to boys. So we need to bridge the gap, and government must take several steps in bridging or reducing the gap. The struggle to achieve gender equality and bridge the gap between men and women is a long and difficult one. It is a long and difficult one. It is not easy. It is not easy to achieve gender equality. It is not easy to see a society wherein men and women are on equal footing. It is not easy to bridge the gap between men and women. It is a long and difficult road. India has got another opportunity to do much better for half of its population. What is the meaning of this? Right? 50% of our population is women. With the global gender gap index for 2022 released by the World Economic Forum on Wednesday, placing it at 135 out of 146 countries. Out of 146 countries, India was placed 135. Now it is a reminder, it is something that tells India India, you must look after your women. Your women are lagging behind men. It is your responsibility to make them equal to men. This index is yet another reminder for the country. The new data, in this new data, right, India's ranking in 2021 was 140 out of 156 countries. Out of 156 countries, India was ranked 140 last year. Now, out of 146 countries, India was ranked 135. It hardly brings cheer. Is it giving happiness? No. Is it bringing a smile on our faces? No. It hardly brings. Hardly means almost no, almost nothing. Right? It's not bringing cheer at all, as India has fared the worst in at least one of the parameters. Very, very important point. You must make note of this. Gender gap index is evaluated across 4 dimensions. We will look at it. Out of which one dimension or one parameter is health and survival. In this parameter, India has fared the worst. What does it mean? India's rank was 146. Out of 146 countries, India was ranked the lowest in this particular parameter, in which it took the last spot. Look at where we are with respect to health and survival parameter. The gender gap index, global gender gap index, benchmarks the current state and evolution of gender parity. Parity means equality. Current state means where we are today with respect to gender parity. Evolution means where we used to be and how far we have come. Right? 10 years back, 20 years back, last year, how it used to be and how far we have come and how far we have improved. That is evolution. Across 4 dimensions. You have to make note of these 4 dimensions. 1, economic participation and opportunity. Second one, educational attainment. Third, health and survival. And fourth, political empowerment. You must remember these 4 parameters: economic participation and opportunity, educational attainment, health and survival, and political empowerment. India ranks poorly among its neighbors and is behind Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, the Maldives, and Bhutan. So these countries are ahead of India in the ranking. So India has fared worse than these neighboring countries. Only Iran, Pakistan and Afghanistan perform worse than India in the region. Only these 3 countries are behind India. Otherwise, rest of the countries are ahead of India with respect to global gender gap index. In 2022, coming on the back of a pandemic, war, economic crisis, and the global gender gap has been closed by 68.1%, which means at the current rate of progress, it will take 132 years to reach full parity. What is the meaning of this sentence? Look at this. In 2022, right? Before coming to 2022, we had 2020, 2021. What happened in last 2 countries? We had pandemic. Now in 2022 we are having a war, Russia-Ukraine war, and we have global economic crisis, right? Coming on the back of all of them, the gender parity. What is the meaning of parity? Full parity means 100% equal. 100% men are equal to women, or women are equal to men. That is gender parity. But how far we have come? We have only come 68.1%. Which means out of all the parameters, in 68.1% of the cases, women are equal to men. But they still need to cover more ground. Another 31.9% gap is still there. That's what they are saying. The gender gap has been closed by 68.1%. We still have to close another 31.9%. And to close this gap at the current rate of progress, right? Every year we are improving, right? Every year we are improving a bit by bit. At the current rate of progress, it will take another 132 years to reach full parity, which means 100% equality between men and women. So it takes so much time. Among all the regions, it will take the longest for South Asia. See, another parameter. This 132 is for the entire world on an average. But if you look at region wise, for South Asia, it will take the longest, which means it takes 197 years to reach full parity. Why? Due to a broad stagnation in gender parity scores. Stagnation means no movement. If the water is stagnant, it's not moving. It is not moving. So, what is stagnant here? Gender parity scores. Scores are not moving at all, which means governments in these areas are not doing enough for the betterment of women to close the gap between men and women. That is the reason we still have stagnation in gender parity scores in the region, because of which it will take much longer for this region to achieve full parity. There have been enough numbers from the ground to indicate that India, with a female population of approximately 66 crore, has faltered on the road to gender parity. Very important sentence. There have been enough numbers from the ground. There are enough numbers, which means we have some proof. We have some proof from different surveys that we have conducted in India. With a female population of 66 crores, it has faltered on the road to gender parity. What is the meaning of falter? Falter means not walking in a proper manner or not moving in a proper manner. Move unsteadily. Move unsteadily. Right? It could not move in a proper, steady manner on the road to gender parity. Right? It has stumbled on the road to gender parity. In the pandemic years, let's look at those numbers. Here they are saying there are enough numbers. What are those numbers? What is the proof? Let's look at it. In the pandemic years, as incomes shrank, women faced hurdles on every front, from food, health and education for the girl child to jobs. Very important. In the pandemic years, what happened? As incomes shrank, as the incomes of men or incomes of the leader of the house, head of the family shrank. Shrank means reduce in size, which means most of the people in pandemic years lost their jobs or got their salary cut, because of which their incomes came down. When the income of the family head goes down, what will happen? The immediate impact will be on women. For example, in a family, head of the family, let's assume he lost his job, his income has come down. He has 2 children, 1 boy, 1 girl, and both of them go to a private school, a prominent private school in their area. Now he doesn't have enough money to pay fee for both his children. He can only pay for only one of them. What will he do? He will ask the girl child to skip schooling, or he will join her in government school. If the government school is doing good, nothing like it. If the government school is not delivering proper education, then the girl child will lose access to quality education. Once your income comes down, the immediate impact is not on the boy child but is on the girl child. Even with respect to food, let's assume you used to bring a lot of fruits, lot of eggs, meat, fish and others. Now you will cut down on your consumption, or even if you bring, you will give more to boy child and ask the girl child to reduce intake. This is how women face hurdles everywhere with respect to food, health, education, and finally to jobs. The latest NFHS, what is this? National Family Health Survey. Data show that 57% of women in 15 to 49 age bracket are anemic. What is the meaning of anemic? Which means they do not have enough blood. They do not have enough blood, or their hemoglobin percentage is less. Hemoglobin percentage is very, very important. So most of the girls face this problem, right? The hemoglobin in your blood is not sufficient, and that state is called anemia. And 57% of women are suffering from anemia. up from 53% in 15-16. In 2015-16 also we used to have it, but the number has gone up. Out of every 100 women, 53 used to be anemic in 15-16. Now 57 are anemic in 2021. This is how the status of women, the health of women has deteriorated, has worsened during pandemic years. Though 88.7% of married women participate in key household decisions, only 25.4% of women aged 15 to 49 years who worked in the last 12 months were paid in cash. So this is a very important sentence. So this is not to say being paid in cash is better. No. The reason they are saying this statement is trying to show there are two aspects to it. First thing, 88.7% of married women participate in key household decisions, which is a good sign. 88.7 is not a small number, which means out of every 100 families, 88.7 or approximately 89 families, women are consulted while taking decisions, while taking important decisions of the family, which is a good sign. But only 25.4% of women aged 15 to 49 years who worked in the last 12 months were paid in cash. In the last 12 months, out of all the women, out of all the women who worked, only 25.4% women were paid in cash. What is the meaning of that? If someone is paid in cash, the money is directly in her own hand. She worked and she got money in her own hand. Otherwise, the money goes to her husband's account or husband's hand. If it goes to husband's hand or husband's account, she might not have access to it at all. If the money comes to her hand, she can do something about it. She can do something with it. That is the reason only this percent as a women were paid in cash. Rest of the women were not paid in cash. Women having you might say, what if the women can also have a bank account? But how many women in India have bank accounts? Not many. With Jan Dhan Yojana, the situation has improved. But before that, only husbands used to have bank accounts. Women did not have bank accounts earlier. Women having a bank account or savings account that they themselves use have increased to 78.6%, with schemes such as Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana helping. With this kind of scheme coming in picture, the number of women having their own bank accounts has increased. But women participation in the labor force, very important statement, has shrunk. What is the meaning of labor force? Remember, this is very important, don't take it easy. The meaning of labor force, what does labor force include? It includes those who are working plus those who are looking for job. It includes both the categories. Suppose I am already working, I am part of labor force. Even if I am not working, if I am actively looking for a job, again I am part of labor force. So what are they saying here? Women's participation in labor force. Women's participation in labor force has shrunk, has come down, which means much less number of women, much fewer number of women are now looking to join jobs or actually working. According to Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, CMI, a very important organization. This organization is a statistical organization which collects data, which does a lot of surveys and collects data. Don't think it is a government organization, it is a private organization. According to this organization's data, in 2016-17, about 15% women were employed or looking for jobs. Very important statement. According to this organization, in 2016-17, about 15% women were employed or looking for jobs, which means they were part of labor force. This metric dipped means came down to 9.2% in 21-22. This metric came down from 15% to 9.2% in 21-22. The best way to improve India's abysmal ranking is to do it right by women. Very important sentence. Very, very important sentence. What is the meaning of this? Then how do we improve the rank of India? Abysmal means pathetic, very bad, something at the lowest point. Abysmal performance, worst performance. How can we improve India's abysmal ranking? Is to do it right by women. What is the meaning of do it right by women? Do it right by women. It doesn't mean we have to do it right and women have to do it. No. It means to treat women fairly. Very, very important. Unless you have this basic English knowledge, you will not be able to understand this. Do it right by means to treat someone fairly. Who is that someone? Women. To treat women fairly. Unless India treats women in a fair manner, India will not be able to improve its abysmal, which means bad ranking. For that, what should we do? It is imperative to increase representation of women in leadership positions at all levels. Imperative means important, to increase representation. Across all leadership positions, women's representation has to go up so that women get greater access to jobs and resources. Only when women are in prominent positions, they can ensure jobs and resources. Women get greater access to jobs and resources. It is up to the government to move beyond tokenisms. Very important sentence. What is the meaning of tokenism? Tokenism is doing something in a perfunctory manner. Perfunctory means not with a lot of determination, not with a lot of intent, just to show to people that you are doing something for women. Governments today, what are they doing? They're trying to do something, they're coming up with some schemes, they're coming up with some policies just to show to people that we are doing something for women. That is tokenism. But if you're really implementing those schemes, if you're really implementing those policies with a lot of heart in it, then it's a different story. Then you can really improve women's condition in the society. But in today's society, governments are resorting to tokenisms or symbolisms. They just want to manipulate people's perception. They just want to make people believe that they are doing great work for people, for women. But in reality, they are not doing much. That is the reason they are saying the government needs to move beyond tokenisms, beyond show-offs, and help women really overcome staggering economic and social barriers. Women today have loads of economic barriers and social barriers. What is a barrier? Barrier is an obstacle. Barrier is a hurdle. They face a lot of issues on every front. So government must do something to help them overcome these hurdles or barriers. That is how you can improve the status of women. At the same time, you can improve India's rank in Global Gender Gap Index. We must go beyond tokenisms. Only when you read these editorials, you will understand how to write conclusion. Always pay attention to the last 2 to 3 sentences. Last 2 to 3 sentences are very important. That gives you an idea as to how to conclude an essay, or how to conclude an answer, or how to give way forward. Right? I hope you have understood this. Put your comments in the comment box. Give your feedback. Take care. Bye-bye.